Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. After a pretty successful free hit in Game Week 4, it's time to take an early look at my transfer plans going into Game Week 5. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to take an early look at my transfer plans ahead of Game Week 5. First of all, a quick look back at my free hit from Game Week 4. A pretty successful one, 77 points, although it is worth noting my original team without the free hit would have scored roughly 70 points. So a little bit frustrating that it did so well considering all the issues that were hanging around in my team, but I still don't regret playing the free hit. 77 points, a good green arrow, halved my rank yet again, so up to about 1.4 million, and it seems like I'm off to a relatively good start this season. Hopefully I can continue that good run of green arrows going into the next few game weeks. So the free hit, don't want to dwell on it for too long because that's not why we're here, but clean sheet across the board for all of my goalkeepers and back three. So Raya, Munoz, Lacroix and Byrne all getting clean sheets. That's obviously very good. No bonus points, no defensive contributions, which is a little bit frustrating, but overall I will accept and take that all day long. Into the midfield, Salah, last minute penalty. That is 4 returns from my captain out of 4 game weeks. Salah, Bruno, Salah, all after the 90th minute. So 4 out of 4 for captaincy, and all after the 90th minute. So it does go to show that picking a player who gets 90 minutes on penalties does go quite a long way in FPL. But, however, Gakpo and Wirtz both letting me down. So the triple Liverpool midfield did not pay dividends, unfortunately. However, Semenyo did, 13 points from him. Penalty goal and assist. Quite fortunate, really, because Kluivert nearly came onto the pitch for the penalty, but not quite. So Semenyo took it. 13 points from him. Very, very happy with that. And up front, my differential of the week was Voltemada, 9 points from him, great header to secure his debut goal, and 3 bonus points as well. Gyökeres also getting the goal. So overall, I'm not complaining, 77 points and a big green arrow going into Game Week 5. However, my free hit was a little bit of a departure from my reality. I've got a few more issues in my squad going into Game Week 5. So let's take a look at how I'm currently set up. And I'm not quite as happy as I was with my free hit. Right then, so back to reality with a bit of a bump. Welcome back to Sheldon Cooper's Fun with Flags. This week, I've got Murillo, who is flagged against Burnley away, Sarr, who looks like he's probably out ahead of West Ham away in Game Week 5, and Strand Larsen, who is also a major doubt going into Leeds at home for Wolves. So, lots of problems, 1 free transfer to deal with it, and 0.8 in the bank. So it's not looking fantastic on paper. However, I think the core of my side still seems okay in the sense that I can probably survive another game week. So in goal, Sanchez away at Man United. Again, not ideal. I wouldn't pick him on a free hit, but away at Man United for Sanchez, I've seen worse fixtures, and goalkeepers are rarely worth taking a hit for or moving free transfers around for in a time of crisis. In my defence, I've got Porro, who's looked very decent so far. Spurs' defence has looked pretty solid, and Porro has attacking threat, so not too unhappy about that. Anderson at home to Brentford. He's hit defensive contributions in all of his last 3 games, so I'm perfectly happy with him at home to Brentford. And then Murillo, who is away at Burnley and a bit of a doubt, but Ange at the end of the game suggested that he might be back after taking a bit of a knock against Arsenal. So fingers crossed that he will be okay for what is a pretty good fixture in terms of clean sheet odds. However, if he doesn't play, my bench doesn't look that strong. So we'll go into the bench in just a moment's time, but I am crossing my fingers that Murillo is okay because that is a good fixture that I want to have Murillo for. Into my midfield, Salah will be my captain at home to Everton. He's been extremely fortunate to get any returns so far this season. He just hasn't really looked at it at the moment. But at home to Everton, he does stay on the pitch for 90 minutes. He does have penalties. He's got routes to points. And however frustrating he has been, he's still gotten 3 attacking returns in his opening 4 game weeks. So I'm hoping that run can continue for 1 more game week, and then I will have a real decision to make as to whether or not I include him on things like a wild card moving forwards. Fernandes at home to Chelsea, again, maybe not ideal on paper, but this guy does end up getting defensive contributions fairly often and will always be in with a shout of getting some sort of attacking returns. Given that he plays 90 minutes, he's on penalties as well. We've already had that coming clutch once this season. So Bruno Fernandes is never going to be an immediate sell for me. Sarr's the major doubt, and it looks like he's going to be out of the West Ham game. However, my bench with Ndai and then Tarkowski coming off the bench, I think I can probably survive one of these players being out for the week. I don't mind having Ndai coming off the bench against Liverpool necessarily. It's not ideal, but Ndai's been very good. Liverpool have been a little bit susceptible to counterattacks so far. So I can see Ndai getting something from that game. He's also gotten defensive contributions once this season as well. So there are routes to points for him. He is on penalties and he is getting good minutes. So although not ideal, I think it's something that I could save a transfer on if Sarr is out for one more game week. Anderson away at Burnley, he's very good on the defensive contributions, and it's a good fixture for potential attacking returns as well. So I can probably just about hold on to him for another game week. And up top, I've got my three. Watkins has been incredibly frustrating. 4 game weeks with no attacking returns for someone who started the game as a 9 million forward. It's just not good enough, and I completely accept that. And on a wild card, he wouldn't be anywhere near my side. And I plan on getting rid of him very, very soon. However, I'm trying to hold off on the wild card for at least one more game week, if not 2. And Sunderland away for Watkins seems like another opportunity for points. And given the 3 flags in my side, if I was going to make a transfer, Watkins just quite frankly wouldn't be the place that I spend that transfer or use that transfer on. There are other ways that I can use it for slightly more upside, but he is definitely on my watch list for getting rid of. He's not been impressive whatsoever, not getting the shots away. Aston Villa still haven't scored a goal. I think they're the one side in the whole football league at the moment that haven't actually scored a goal yet. So I am very worried about that. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. But I think given it's Sunderland next, who have, by the way, looked pretty good defensively, it would be maybe a little bit more knee-jerk to get rid of him now, considering all of the other issues that I've got with my squad. If I was wildcarding this week, he would not be in my wildcard. But I think there are bigger issues with my side this game week. So he'll probably stay one more week, but I don't expect I'll hold on to him anywhere after game week 6 or 7 is out of the way. Moving across, Strand Larsen is a doubt against Leeds. However, there is a little bit more hope than there is with Ismail Assar, so I'm crossing my fingers that he'll be okay. It's a decent fixture, although Leeds so far have looked pretty good at the back, and they haven't been conceding that many big chances. Their XGC per 90 has been pretty good as well, so I'm not holding out massive hopes for that fixture, even if he is fit. But again, if he is going to play that game, I don't think it's that much of a problem that I need to sort out. And even if Sarr and Strand Larsen are both out, my bench, my first 2 on the bench anyway, Ndai and Tarkowski, even away against Liverpool, considering Ndai's on penalties, gets 90 minutes, and Tarkowski is a defensive contributions monster who's hit those defensive contributions every single match so far, I'm looking at 3 or 4 points from both of them. I don't think it's necessarily worth a transfer either. And there is still hope that Strand Larsen plays as well. Across from that, João Pedro, he's going nowhere. He seems to just find routes to points every single week. Got 7 in game week 4 when I obviously didn't have him on a free hit, just from the assist off of a deflected header. So again, he's just a player that is going absolutely nowhere. I'm very happy to own him, and he will probably be my vice captain this week. However, all of that being said, there are 3 flags in my side, Murillo, Sarr and Strand Larsen. If each of those are out, then I'm relying on 2 players away at Liverpool and then Esteve off my bench at home to Nottingham Forest. So it's not looking ideal. Ideally, I do want to roll, and I'll explain my logic for that in just a moment's time. But the wildcard is in my back pocket, and I'm not completely against using it if the worst case scenario does occur here. Right then, so using FPL.team to map out my future moves and what the consequences of making any moves this week might be, I think it's important to note which players I'm most interested or desperate to get to ahead of game week 5 and onwards. Erling Haaland would obviously be number 1. However, the fact that he goes up against Arsenal away in game week 5 means that maybe it's a transfer I can put off for another game week. Equally, on the inverse side of that, I also really want Arsenal defenders. However, Man City at home for them doesn't scream clean sheets. So maybe both of those moves can wait for another game week or potentially on a wild card. Obviously, those of you who have Erling Haaland are going to be loving life and laughing right now because 5 goals in 4, he's in the form of his career. And I can still see him returning against Arsenal. It's not like I can't see that happening. However, I'm not desperate to break my team apart, especially with one free transfer. If I'm going to get to him, it needs to be for a hit this game week. And it's about as hard a fixture as he's ever going to face in the Premier League. Arsenal are a very good defence. But on the flip side of it, the Arsenal defence, which I also want, it's not a defence I want to be targeting ahead of Man City either. So both of those transfers can probably wait another game week. And equally, the player that I'd most want outside of Man City or Arsenal is probably Semenyo. Now, Semenyo has Newcastle at home this game week and then Leeds after that. So Newcastle, considering they've been very solid at the back so far, I'm not sure that I need to rip my team apart to get to him, especially considering I've only got 0.8 in the bank. Now, the obvious move would be Sarr to Semenyo. However, I'm priced out of that. So it would need to be a hit to get to him unless I sell either Bruno or Salah. And realistically, that's not happening this game week. So I think that's, again, another transfer that I'll just hold off on. Other people can go there and he could do very well against Newcastle, especially because Newcastle have got Champions League to contest with as well. And they might be a little bit leggy in that fixture. But I still back them to be fairly solid at the back. And maybe that's not a fixture that I would necessarily be desperate to get to Semenyo for. So the players that I'm most desperate to get to this week don't have the best fixtures. And I think across the board, this could be a bit of a stodgy game week. I'm not looking at any teams right now and thinking, wow, I wish I had that 11. There are just a lot of pretty evenly contested fixtures across the board ahead of game week 5. And although I'm not happy with my side, if 2 of those 3 injured players, Murillo and Strand Larsen, let's say, can come back and I play and die against Liverpool, I think I could probably make peace with it. Now, the reason that I'm so keen to possibly try and roll a transfer this week is because I can see the power or the benefit of having 2 free transfers in game week 6. Now, game week 6, I've just moved across to it. If I did roll a transfer this week, I'd have 0.8 in the bank and I could easily move Strand Larsen across to Erling Haaland. I'd need 6.9 to make that happen. However, Salah could become, well, at the time of recording anyway, it could become Semenyo, it could become Reinders as well. There are a few other options at that sort of price point. And Erling Haaland at home to Burnley is potentially even a triple captaincy option. So again, I think it is important to get to Erling Haaland in game week 6. And I want to leave myself the route to get to him without taking a hit. Now, if worst case scenario happens and I really feel like I need to make a transfer going into game week 5, let's say all of those players are definitely out, Murillo, Sarr, Strand Larsen, and maybe another one is, and I'm going to play with 10, then I'm going to be forced into making a move and using a transfer, maybe Sarr or Strand Larsen across. Strand Larsen could become Thiago or Voltemada with 1 free transfer. Sarr could become Xavi Simons. It could be Rodgers. It could be Grealish, maybe even Reinders as well, although Arsenal not a great fixture. Most likely Simons, I think, given the fixtures on the table. But again, ideally, I don't want to make those moves because it does lock me out of getting to Haaland without using a hit to get there in game week 6. However, if I did need to make a transfer in game week 5 just to make sure I've got 11 playing, then I would probably look at activating the wildcard 1 game week early in game week 6, which is not ideal. And it would maybe compromise the side that I was looking at wildcarding in game week 7 to optimize slightly for game week 6. But I think it's probably worth doing if it means that I'm not playing with 10 in game week 5 and game week 6, I can get to Erling Haaland as well. So that in summary is probably why I'm most likely to roll going into game week 5. Although my team on paper, let's just say all of those players are injured and I swap them in, Ndai would probably be starting ahead of Sarr, Tarkowski ahead of Murillo if he's out, and Esteve ahead of Strand Larsen. It really doesn't look great at all. And this is not a week that I'm looking forward to whatsoever. I'm not expecting a green arrow, but what I am hoping for is to just maybe maintain position, try and hold ground, save the transfer, and then I can go back on the aggressive, on the attack in game week 6 when I've got 2 free transfers and I can get to Erling Haaland without needing a wild card or a free hit to do so. Obviously, I've used my free hit now, and without using a hit. And then I've potentially got a triple captaincy option and I've got a couple of very aggressive moves that I can make in game week 6, rather than maybe using one that is a little bit more sideways in game week 5 and then locking me out of what is, I believe anyway, a high upside move in game week 6. Right then, so looking back at my bust team ahead of game week 5, obviously flags galore, and Sar I expect to be out of game week 5. So Ndai will most likely come into my starting 11, although I don't think that's a nightmare, even with the fixture on paper looking pretty poor. Liverpool away, obviously not ideal, but he is a 90-minute man on penalties. He might even get some def cons as well. So I don't think that that is worth using a transfer on. So I can absolutely absorb having Sar out for this game week. However, if both Murillo and Strand Larsen are out, that might be where I start getting itchy feet, and maybe I start looking at making a transfer this week and bringing forward the wildcard to game week 6. However, I'm going to cross my fingers, hope that Murillo and Strand Larsen are both available, both playing promoted clubs, although Strand Larsen against Leeds doesn't look ideal considering Leeds have been good at the back. I would be more than happy with playing either of them if I can. And really, as I'm sure you can sense, I'm just hoping that I can roll a transfer this game week to give me 2 next week, attack the good fixture for Man City against Burnley, get to Erling Haaland without needing a wild card to do so, and potentially even having the option of triple captaining him because I've not used a wild card. Obviously, 2 chips you can't do at the same time. So I want to leave that route open to me, but I am willing to use a transfer if I need to, especially if I'm going all the way to bench option number 3, Esteve, coming into my starting lineup if Murillo and Strand Larsen are both out as well. However, I'm going to keep my ear to the ground. I'm going to stay calm for now, and hopefully I'm going to be able to resist making any transfers this week, with the upside of next week looking much more positive than any transfer I can seemingly make this week, as far as I can tell anyway. Now, if you've seen something that I haven't seen, please do feel free to leave a comment below, because I'm all ears at this point. I would love to hear your opinions. And as always, if you've got any questions, do drop them in the comments below and I'll try and get back to you before game week 5. If you've enjoyed today's video, please do leave a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time as we look at the best players to buy ahead of game week 5.